Sophia sat in the dim light of the attic, a heavy silence pressing down around her. The house, now empty of her grandmother's warmth, felt unfamiliar. The funeral was over, the tears had dried, but grief clung to her like a thick fog. She was going through boxes of old family belongings with her mother, trying to pack away memories, when she found something she wasn't looking for. It was an old wooden box, small and dusty. Hidden in the back of her grandmother's closet, the box seemed to have been forgotten by time. At first, Sophia didn't think much of it. She thought it was just another old trinket, something to throw away. But as she opened it, she felt a strange tug at her heart. Inside, carefully tied with a faded red ribbon, was a letter. The paper had yellowed with age, the handwriting delicate and looping. On the envelope were only 3 words, written in a familiar hand. For my granddaughter. Sophia held the letter with both hands, her heart suddenly heavy. She had loved her grandmother more than anyone in the world. She had been the one to raise her after her parents left for work overseas. The woman had taught her everything: how to braid her hair, how to bake cookies, how to speak when sad, how to listen when angry. And now, this. A letter. A secret. Her grandmother had always been quiet. Strong. A woman who seemed to carry a heavy weight in her chest but never let anyone see it. But this letter. It felt like a key to something Sophia didn't know. Something her grandmother had kept hidden. She opened it carefully. Dear Sophia, if you are reading this, I am already gone. But that does not mean I have left you. I have written this because there are things I never had the strength to say in person. I hope these words will live in your heart as they have lived in mine. Sophia wiped her eyes. You were always my joy, my little sunlight. But I know sometimes you saw only my silence. You didn't understand why I sat by the window alone, why I never spoke of the past, why I never left the house. It's time to tell you the truth. The truth was a boy with ink on his fingers and stars in his mind. Sophia's fingers shook as she read on. Her grandmother, always so quiet, had once been a girl with a fire in her heart. The letter continued. I was 16, living in Paris during the war. It was a time of darkness and fear, but there, in the midst of all that, I met him. A boy in a bookshop. He was reading poetry, and I was returning a French novel. Our eyes met, and that was it. Our hearts followed. We wrote letters, hundreds of them, folded neatly into old newspaper pages, hidden in tree trunks, passed hand to hand. He called me Ciel Petit, my little sky. I called him Lumiere du Feu, my firelight. And then he disappeared. Sophia felt her breath catch in her throat. Her grandmother had never spoken of this, never mentioned a boy, never spoken of love. The words hit Sophia like a wave. He never said goodbye, never came back. I waited for months, then years. I heard rumors he was taken, sent away, never seen again. My family told me to forget him. But how do you forget a fire that lives inside your chest? Sophia's fingers trembled as she continued to read. So I stayed quiet. I married another. I lived small, trying to forget the love that still burned in my chest. But I couldn't. I taught you how to love, even when I forgot how to love myself. And now, I need to tell you this because your heart is kind and your mind is strong. You deserve to know. There was more. Beneath the letter, Sophia found a small envelope. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was an address and a photograph. The man in the photo was old now. His hair was gray, his eyes tired. He was holding a notebook. On the back of the photo, her grandmother had written, Paris, 2023. The next morning, Sophia booked a flight to Paris. She didn't know why. but something in her heart told her that this was what she needed to do. Her mother didn't understand. Her friends thought she was chasing ghosts. But Sophia knew something they didn't. Some stories are never finished, and some letters wait decades to be answered. She arrived in Paris in winter. The air was cold, sharp, like the grief in her heart. The buildings were old stone, beautiful, but weathered by time. Sophia walked down narrow streets, holding the photograph and the address, feeling like an outsider in a city she had never been to before. After 2 hours of wandering, she found the place, a small bookstore tucked between a bakery and a school. She stepped inside. A small bell above the door rang gently. Behind the counter stood an old man, tall, thin, with silver hair and dark eyes. His face looked like someone who had seen a lifetime of pain, yet there was a gentleness in his gaze. He looked at her. She looked at him. Then Sophia pulled out the photo. The man didn't speak. He just stared. Then, slowly, he sat down. Sophia approached him, her voice small, almost shaking. "I think you knew my grandmother." He closed his eyes, then opened them again. Tears had gathered in his eyes. "I never stopped writing to her," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Even when I thought she was gone, I wrote letters and hid them in books. Every year." He reached behind the counter and pulled out a thick notebook. Pages upon pages of poetry, of sketches, of her grandmother's name written again and again. "She was my sky," the old man said, his voice filled with a love that had not faded with time. "And she never stopped loving you," Sophia replied softly, her heart breaking for the love that had been lost. They sat in silence, the kind of silence that comes only after a storm has passed, the quiet that follows the flood of emotion, a silence filled with understanding, with pain, and with the weight of lost years. Sophia spent the next week in Paris. Every day, she returned to the bookstore. They talked about her grandmother. They shared stories, laughed at the old memories, memories Sophia had never lived, but somehow felt connected to. On her last day in Paris, the old man handed her something wrapped in silk. "A letter," he said softly, "for her, but it's for you too." Sophia opened it that night, under a Paris moon. The words danced on the page as if they had been waiting for years to be read. "My little sky, if somehow these words find their way to you again, know this: I never stopped loving you. Not when I was taken. Not when I was far. Not even when I thought you were lost. Love does not end. It only changes form. It becomes letters, wind, light, and sometimes it becomes a granddaughter." Sophia folded the letter gently and placed it next to the first. 2 letters, 2 souls, 2 stories. And Sophia, she was now the bridge between them. The grief, the silence, the waiting, it all felt real now. Not just in words, but in her heart. Sophia had carried her grandmother's silence for so long, but now she understood. She understood that love never truly fades. It changes form. It becomes part of who you are, who you were meant to be. Sophia smiled through her tears. Her grandmother's story was not finished. And now Sophia would finish it. For both of them. You could memorize a list of vocabulary, or you could feel it. That's what the last letter was about. It's not just a story. It's a lesson, a memory, a bridge between words and meaning. Language learners often ask, how can I remember new words? My answer, live them. When you cry with a word, when you smile because of a phrase, when a sentence sits with you for hours, that's not just language learning. That's transformation. This is why we create stories like these. Because the human brain doesn't remember rules, it remembers feelings. You might forget the word grief, but you'll never forget the pain in Sophia's hands. You might forget firelight, but you'll remember how her grandmother's heart kept burning. So let stories teach you. Read, feel, cry, smile, and when you speak, let every word carry a story. That's how you become fluent, not in tests, but in life. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this one. Share your thoughts and help us bring more meaningful tales to life.